Renee stared straight into my eyes and declared, "He's capable of things you could never manage." She delivered it like a sharp blade. What she didn't realize was that I had already placed the call. By sunrise, the world she had secretly constructed would collapse, and she would have no one else to hold responsible except herself. The night I spotted them together, I wasn't meant to be present. A client of mine, Datamark, a major logistics firm, had arranged a corporate gathering at the Winslow Grand. That was Renee's hotel. She had managed events there for the past 6 years. When Greg from Datamark extended the invitation, I nearly declined. But the agreement was valued at $80,000, and Greg preferred handling deals in person. So I slipped on a jacket and headed across the city. The ballroom sat on the second floor. I arrived ahead of schedule and paused in the hallway beside the service corridor to check my phone. That's when I caught her laughter. It wasn't coming from the ballroom, it drifted from a small room farther down the passage. The door stood slightly ajar, perhaps 4 inches. Renee faced away from the unfamiliar man, tall, wearing a tailored shirt, hair swept back, his palm resting on the curve of her lower back. She leaned toward him comfortably, showing no sign of resistance. They never noticed me. I remained there for roughly 5 seconds. Then I turned, entered the ballroom, greeted Greg with a handshake, and sealed the contract over a glass of club soda. Later that night, when Renee returned home, I inquired about her day. She tossed her keys onto the counter and replied it was a long shift. Just the usual banquet arrangements, nothing important to discuss. 21 years of marriage. That was the first deception I detected. My name is Marcus Boone, 47 years old. I run a modest company in Austin with 4 staff members, operating from a leased space near Lamar. Businesses bring us in to identify vulnerabilities in their networks before cybercriminals can exploit them. I've worked in digital security since my 20s. Renee and I purchased our home in Cedar Park when our son Jalen was 3. The mortgage is nearly settled. 21 years together, 18 of them as husband and wife. She maintained the household so smoothly it seemed effortless. I always praised her for that, perhaps not often enough. 2 days after the hotel incident, I stayed silent. Not because I felt paralyzed, but because I required solid evidence before taking any step. That's simply how my mind operates. But another event unfolded first. On Saturday morning, I canceled our planned anniversary getaway to Fredericksburg. A new client faced a ransomware crisis with a tight deadline. Renee slammed her coffee mug down, spilling some liquid. "You always pull this, Marcus, every single occasion." The disagreement escalated quickly. I remained composed. She did not. And then the words slipped out. "He's capable of things you could never manage." The kitchen fell quiet. Renee blinked rapidly. She attempted to correct herself. "I meant you never put us first." That's my point, but she hadn't said people. She hadn't said anyone. She had said he. I offered a small smile, not out of amusement, because now I possessed a clear path forward. "You're correct," I replied. "I should improve." Then I stepped into my home office and shut the door. My fingers stayed steady on the keys, yet something deep inside my chest felt fractured. 21 years. Jalen taking his first steps across the living room floor. The summer we repainted the entire house, and Renee accidentally tipped over a full gallon of primer on the back porch. She laughed until she gasped for air. That mark remained visible if you knew exactly where to search. And now this. He's capable of things you could never manage. 10 minutes passed. Then I began my search. My profession doesn't involve breaking into systems. It focuses on uncovering what individuals carelessly expose. Social platforms, financial records, public databases. Usually people create their own downfall. Renee proved no exception. The first discovery came quickly. An Instagram profile belonging to a man named Trent Holloway, a personal fitness instructor. He rented workspace inside the Winslow Grand's wellness section. Hidden among his tagged images were several shots from hotel team-building sessions and events. Renee appeared in the background of many, always positioned right beside him. The second discovery involved our shared credit card. Renee managed the monthly summaries. For 7 months, there were repeated payments marked as wellness or private session. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening at 8 p.m., these weren't group fitness classes. They were private sessions in Trent's massage room. The third discovery required more time. Small bank transfers under $500 to an unfamiliar account. $200 here, $350 there, labeled simply as groceries or dry cleaning. Over 7 months, the total reached $6,840, every transaction detail, every date and time, every misleading description she had entered. I printed every document, secured them inside my desk drawer, and considered my next contact. I knew the Winslow Grand well from previous work. 2 years earlier, Dave Ramirez, the general manager, had engaged my firm to review their systems following a potential data leak incident. I had spent 3 full weeks inside that property. Dave and I had kept in occasional contact, occasional lunches, the odd business referral. Here's what stood out in my memory. Dave had mentioned during drinks last autumn that the wellness area had already raised concerns. One guest had reported unusual sounds coming from the private suites after dark. The hotel conducted an internal check. Trent Holloway's name surfaced, $14,000 in unpaid rent, plus multiple complaints from nearby businesses. Dave had overlooked it because the section generated income, but the case file remained active. One additional issue and the arrangement would end. Monday morning at 9:15, I dialed him. "Dave, it's Marcus Boone. I've come across information you need to review not as a friend, but as a previous service provider. One of your employees appears to be using hotel facilities for private encounters with one of your renters, the same renter who owes significant back rent." There was a brief pause. "Which employee?" I identified her. I offered to forward the credit card records, the appointment overlaps, and the scheduling details. All clean facts delivered without emotion. "Send everything across," Dave replied. His tone turned strictly business. "I'll handle it from this point. One conversation, less than 5 minutes, no sense of triumph. Only an empty echo inside my chest, as though I had triggered something weighty. Now there was nothing left but to wait. Things progressed quicker than anticipated. By Wednesday, Trent Holloway's rental agreement was terminated. Dave possessed the overdue payments, the tenant grievances, and fresh evidence of a staff member misusing hotel space after hours. Trent received 48 hours to vacate. Thursday afternoon, Renee was summoned to HR. She wasn't dismissed, but her position was reorganized. Shifted from event coordinator to a standard administrative post. No more late-night functions, no more work on the ballroom level. The new title appeared identical on documents yet carried the weight of restriction. She returned home looking drained. She let her bag fall near the entrance. She didn't even remove her coat. "Something changed at the office," she said, studying my expression carefully. "Testing the waters. What changed?" "They adjusted my responsibilities without any warning." Dave mentioned their shifting priorities. She paused, waiting for my response. I filled a glass with water for her and asked what she wanted for dinner. That night, her voice filtered through the bathroom door, quiet yet edged with anger. I didn't need to eavesdrop. I already knew who was on the other end. What I hadn't anticipated was the aftermath. Renee emerged with swollen eyes and a tightly clenched jaw. Whatever Trent had said offered no support. Instead, he accused her of informing management. He held her responsible for losing his workspace and ended the call abruptly. She remained frozen in the hallway, phone still in her grip, gazing blankly at the wall. For roughly 2 seconds, a flicker of sympathy almost surfaced within me. Almost. Friday morning, I sat across from Sandra Chin in her office and signed the documents. My attorney already possessed the bank records, the credit card statements, and the complete paper trail. $6,840 transferred directly to the man my wife had been involved with. Sandra explained it wouldn't dictate an exact division, but it would heavily tilt the discussions in my favor. The house remained registered in my name. Purchased prior to our marriage, with payments drawn from my business funds. Sandra advised me to remain patient while the documents advanced. I hadn't intended to inform Renee immediately. I planned for one more peaceful weekend. Renee had other intentions. Saturday morning, I stepped out to grab coffee. Upon returning, I found her standing in the kitchen clutching the printed bank records from my desk drawer. She had located the spare key. Her hands trembled visibly. "Did you cause this?" she demanded. "Did you contact Dave?" I placed the coffee on the counter, met her gaze directly. $6,840, Renee. That's the amount of our shared funds you transferred to him. Groceries, dry cleaning. I allowed the words to hang in the air. You listed them as dry cleaning. No response came from her at first. I filed the papers yesterday. The house remains mine. My lawyer already holds copies of everything you're holding right now. I gestured toward the documents. You should contact your own attorney. Over the next hour, Renee cycled through several reactions. Denial came first. Those transfers were for wellness appointments. Personal care, Marcus, she insisted, even as she gripped printouts clearly showing payments sent straight to Trent Holloway's private account. Not to the hotel, to him personally. Then came the blame shifting. You were never around. You always picked work instead. You canceled Fredericksburg right before our anniversary. Third was the reaction that nearly affected me. Tears, genuine and heavy. She sank slowly against the kitchen cabinet onto the floor, sobbing with deep, choking breaths that once would have sent me rushing to her side in seconds. 18 years of marriage had conditioned that instinct into me. Her tears had always triggered action. My feet stayed planted. I'm finished with this, I stated calmly. She lifted her head. Marcus, please, it was only a mistake. Trent meant nothing. He's capable of things you could never manage, her exact words. Same kitchen, same counter, a different Saturday. That's what you told me, right here. Her expression went completely empty, as if hearing her own voice replayed from something she had tried to delete. Renee parted her lips once more, then closed them without speaking. All resistance drained from her like air escaping a punctured tire. You have until the end of the weekend, I informed her. Sandra will send the proposed terms on Monday. Make sure you have legal representation ready. I turned and left, climbed into my truck, and headed to the office. I stayed there working until midnight. Sunday evening, I sat on the back porch with my laptop open, reviewing a business proposal. An unfamiliar truck rolled into the driveway, Trent Holloway. He appeared quite different from the man I had glimpsed in the hotel hallway, smaller somehow, unshaven, wearing a creased polo shirt. He approached the porch steps with the reluctant gait of someone facing consequences. You're Marcus? Yes. His hands stayed tucked in his pockets. I didn't come here to cause trouble. She told me you two had already separated, mentioned the divorce was underway. The money she gave me, she claimed it came from her personal savings. He paused and swallowed. I had no idea it was taken from your joint account. I observed him carefully. He clearly spent time in the gym, which made sense until recently. How long did it last? I asked. 7 months. She said you were constantly working, that you no longer cared, that she was already planning to leave. She told me she was working late, I responded, every Tuesday and Thursday. Trent shut his eyes. When he reopened them, he seemed a decade older. She told you she was leaving me. She told me she was staying with me. Sounds like she crafted a different story for each of us. He gave a single nod. Then descended the steps, returned to his truck, and drove away silently. I watched his taillights fade into the distance. Afterward, I called Jalen at Texas State. We had spoken twice that month, both conversations centered on tuition costs. Hey, Dad, what's going on? Nothing critical. Just wanted to check in and hear how you're doing. We spoke for 40 minutes. I shared a general outline of recent events. He stayed quiet for a long stretch. Then he said, You're going to be okay, Dad. Events accelerated from there. Sandra managed all the legal documents. The $6,840 in transfers went directly to Trent Holloway's account, disguised as groceries and dry cleaning. Renee's lawyer had limited options. I retained the house, we divided the retirement savings evenly, and Renee waived any claim to my business. The settlement remained straightforward, no prolonged conflict. Renee packed her belongings on a Tuesday while I was at work. When I returned home, half the closet stood empty. Her house key rested on the kitchen counter beside a short note. I'm sorry for everything, no forwarding address. I read it twice. Then folded it neatly, placed it in a drawer, and prepared dinner. She relocated to her sister's place in Dallas. That became the final update I received. As for Trent, news spreads quickly through Austin's fitness community. He lost his regular clients along with the studio space. A friend who operates a gym near South Congress mentioned that Trent relocated to San Antonio in April to rebuild somewhere no one recognized him. In a sense, Renee had treated him even more harshly than she had treated me. At least I discovered the truth on my own schedule. He had been completely caught off guard by a woman who fed him precisely the narrative he wanted to believe. Jalen returned home for a weekend visit in late April. We grilled steaks outside. The Astros fell short against the Rangers. Neither of us brought up his mother. When he departed Sunday morning, he lingered a moment longer at the doorway. "Call me more often, Dad." "Not only when it's about tuition." "Deal." I needed to visit the Winslow Grand once more. Dave Ramirez reached out in early May with a new opportunity. A complete security upgrade for the entire hotel chain. All 4 Texas properties. It was the type of long-term project I had considered for 2 years but had never accepted because Renee had always objected. Too much time away. Too uncertain to expand the business while things felt settled. Settled, her preferred term for avoiding progress. We met in the hotel's restaurant. The same building where I had witnessed Renee with Trent through that hallway door. The service corridor lay just 20 feet from our table. Dave pushed a folder across the tablecloth. A 3-year contract covering all 4 sites. You'd likely need to bring on at least 2 additional staff. Strong figures, genuine commitment. One more thing, Dave added, leaning closer. I never inquired about what occurred between you and Renee. I won't begin now, but I followed every proper procedure. The materials you provided matched the existing records we already maintained. No one faced consequences they hadn't brought upon themselves. I'm grateful for that, Dave. He tapped the folder lightly. So, are we moving forward with this? 2 years ago, I would have consulted Renee first. 1 year ago, I would have paused to consider. 6 months ago, I had watched my wife leaning close to another man through a partially open door in this very building. I closed the folder. We're moving forward. The house was listed for sale in June, not because I was forced to sell, but because every room now carried memories of 21 years that had proven to be something entirely different. The primer stain still visible on the back porch, the one Renee created the summer we painted the house. It used to bring a smile. Now it resembled a trace left behind by someone who had already begun to depart. I accepted an offer on Monday. 2 bids came in above the asking price by Thursday. I signed the lease for a larger office space downtown, double the square footage, enough room for 6 workstations. I brought on a network analyst named Priya and a junior security tester fresh out of UT Austin. The Datamark project seamlessly expanded into the Winslow Grand contract, and my once small 4-person operation began to grow. Moving day fell on the final Saturday of June. Jalen drove up from San Marcos to assist with loading the truck. We carried the final box out side by side. He paused on the lawn, gazing at the now vacant house. "This feels strange," he remarked. "Yeah, but a good kind of strange." I turned the key in the lock one final time and passed it to the real estate agent. I walked to my truck and phoned Priya. "It's Marcus. The Winslow project build-out is approved. Begin arranging the site inspections. I want all 4 locations fully mapped by the end of July." The engine started smoothly. In the side mirror, the house grew smaller behind us. The porch, the old stain, the front entrance where Renee once waited with warm light glowing from within. I merged onto the main road and continued driving forward.